Shocking door discovered on ocean floor at 3 a.m. You won't believe what's on the other side. It was a chilly night as the fishermen of Cape Coldwater returned to shore, their small boat shimmering under the eerie glow of the moonlight. The waves rolled like restless spirits, whispering secrets of the deep. At 3 in the morning, their shouts rang out, slicing through the otherwise still air. Suddenly, the water churned violently, unveiling something hidden beneath the surface. A door old, barnacle-encrusted, and standing tall against the backdrop of the ocean floor appeared. Was this just a mirage? A joke? No one could look away. It was a shocking sight, almost otherworldly, enchanting and terrifying all at once. As the fishermen gathered around, hearts pounding, they blinked in disbelief. This door didn't belong there. It seemed to pulse with an energy that sent chills down their spines. Fighting the urge to step back, they leaned in closer, the salty breeze tinged with something metallic and foreboding. Their eyes widened when they noticed strange symbols etched into the wood, glowing softly in the half-light, an ancient language, or something crafted by an otherworldly hand. The air grew heavy with tension, as every man held their breath, a lump forming in their throats, unable to look away. The older ones exchanged worried glances, murmuring about legends their grandparents whispered at bedtime, tales of lost civilizations and portals to realms unknown. Even the bravest among them felt the weight of fear squeeze their chests. Silence fell, heavy like the ocean above. And then, it happened. A low, haunting creak echoed from the door, affecting their minds deeply. Was it inviting them in, or warning them to stay back? With every heartbeat, the anticipation built, thick enough to slice through with a knife. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. As they teetered between fear and curiosity, one brave soul moved closer, feeling the waves lap against his legs. Would he dare touch the door? The entire ocean seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the moment that would bring this mystery to its head. With a trembling hand, he reached out as the door shuddered slightly, almost in response. What awaited them on the other side? Was it treasure, monsters, or knowledge lost to time? Just as he was about to push, a distant, eerie wail floated through the air. The men recoiled, hearts racing, casting each other terrified glances as shadows danced around them beneath the water. What lay hidden was more terrifying than any of them had imagined. The wail echoed like a ghostly lament, curling around the fishermen's hearts and squeezing tight. Fear rushed through them, cold and sharp as the sea itself. They stumbled back, their eyes darting wildly, scanning the dark waters for the source of that sound. The door loomed behind them, a dark sentinel that seemed to tower and pulse with a life of its own. "Did you hear that?" one man whispered, his voice trembling. "Yeah," came the shaky reply, but the words hung in the air, heavy with dread. The moonlight flickered as clouds skimmed over it, casting the scene into momentary darkness. Then, like a light bulb igniting, their whispers escalated into frantic chatter. Some wanted to flee, certain that whatever lay behind that door was better left untouched. Others, fueled by intrigue and the spontaneity of the moment, urged to press on, to explore the unknown. "We're not children," insisted Hank, an older fisherman whose weathered face reflected both wisdom and apprehension. "What if there's more than just fish down there?" The air crackled, vibrating with tension. Their breaths became quick, sporadic puffs of steam in the cold night. The distant wail returned, this time more insistent, clawing at the edges of their minds. "Let us just give it a nudge," suggested Jason, the youngest among them, who had never encountered anything quite so haunting. He stepped closer again, as if drawn by an unseen force. It wasn't bravery, it was madness edging towards temptation. "Don't," someone shouted, but it was too late. With a swift motion, Jason shoved his shoulder against the door. The creak that followed was deafening, reverberating in their bones. The door, almost eager, swung open, revealing an abyss that seemed to breathe a dark void carved from the fabric of the ocean itself. A chilling gust of water rushed out, surrounding them like icy fingers. The men stumbled back, gripping their boats, eyes wide with horror and fascination. They stared into that inky blackness, pondering the depths of the unknown. What if it's a trap? Hank gasped, sounding more incredulous than before. He took a step back, instinct forcing his feet to retreat as the others edged closer. But Jason, whose fascination had overtaken his caution, leaned in, squinting to glimpse anything beyond the threshold. His breath caught in his throat. Shapes flickered faintly in the darkness. Wave-like ripples distorted what might be forms, faces trapped in anguish, creatures that belonged in nightmares. Time froze, the air ballooning with a thick sense of danger. One by one, the fishermen felt an unsettling pull drawing them toward the door, like moths to a flame. Then, suddenly, Jason jolted back, his face drained of color. "Did you see that?" he stammered, shaking. There was something in there, something alive. Silence blanketed them. The waves continued their restless dance, but this time the ocean whispered desperate warnings, urging them to escape while they could. Yet, amid the chaos of thoughts and emotions, a spark of indefinable curiosity ignited in their hearts. What lay beyond the door? Was it salvation or destruction, with the door yawning behind them? The fishermen exchanged glances loaded with fear and urgency. The choice sat heavy. Would they venture in deeper? Or turn back and forego what might be their only chance to unveil the truths hidden below? As they hesitated, another mournful call rang from the depths, echoing like a mocking laugh at their indecision. In that harrowing moment, the ocean beckoned once more, the door pulsing enticingly, inviting them to uncover its darkest secrets. What awaited them next would change everything. But who among them would step through? Jason's heart raced as he took a step back, glancing at his friends' fearful faces. Their breaths hung in the cold night air, and they could taste the salt of the sea mixed with their unease. He gripped the edge of the doorframe, his knuckles white. Something was calling to him. "Jason, don't do this," Hank warned, his voice urgent. "It's not worth it." But Jason couldn't shake the feeling. Whatever lay beyond might change everything. He felt like he had danced too close to an edge, and in that moment, something primal pushed him forward. He took a deep breath, the salty air filling his lungs, and ventured closer again. "Wait," another fisherman pleaded, but the darkness swallowed their words. Jason peered into the void, a cold chill wrapping around his spine as he beheld a faint glow rising from the depths. The others shuffled restlessly, afraid yet curious. One man, Tyler, tightened his grip on his fishing rod, the metal feeling suddenly heavy. "Guys, let us just go," he urged, glancing back at the rolling waves as if they'd provide a distraction. There's nothing good in there. But it wasn't just Jason's decision anymore. The pull of that darkness had seeped into each remaining fisherman's mind. They looked at one another, wide eyes shining with unshed horror, then back at the door that seemed almost alive. Each man fought with himself, weighing fear against intrigue. Then a voice broke through the tension, a voice they all recognized. "We shouldn't be here," Hank declared. "We've heard the stories, the fishermen who never came back. They vanished after that whale. This is foolish." But what if Jason's voice was barely a whisper, breaking with anxiety? What if it's a way to find out what happened? What if we can save them? Save who? Hank shot back, his patience thinning. There's nothing in there to save. We don't need this. As Jason's resolve wavered, Hank shoved him back firmly, ready to shut the door. But Jason pushed against the solid wood with trembling hands, and a surge of something darker filled the air around them. Another wailing cry rose from the depths, haunting and echoing, igniting the primal fear within every fisherman. Something alive stirred behind that door. Hank's face paled. No, we need to get out of here." He began to step back, but tripped, falling against the dock. In that moment of distraction, a shadow emerged from the doorway, and gasps followed. It was a hand, clawing its way toward them, pale, thin fingers that grasped at the air like a desperate child reaching for help. Jason's scream caught in his throat as the fear wordlessly spread. Behind that hand, a figure emerged, its face obscured by the murky shadows of the sea. It stumbled forward, revealing a hollow gaze, eyes that spoke of despair. "Help!" The voice trembled, like a cold breeze that rippled through their souls. "What the hell is that?" Tyler shouted, taking a step back. "We need to run. Now." The group watched, frozen, as the apparition raised its other arm, revealing tattered clothing draped over its skeletal frame. The fishermen exchanged horrified glances, and in that shared astonishment, hope and dread collided. In the chaos, pleas rang from the depths, echoing toward the surface. This spirit, even in its haunting form, seemed to hold truths they had long sought. But the danger was palpable, the line between curiosity and horror growing thinner. The fishermen were at a crossroads. Dare they engage in the embrace of the abyss, risking their souls for the promise of knowledge? But before a decision could be made, the dark waters roiled and churned, sending waves crashing against the dock. Something else was rising, something far more sinister than mere shadows as a monstrous roar split the night. The men braced themselves, caught between the spirit beckoning them forward and the terror of what lurked just beyond. Would they stand their ground or flee into the night, haunted by what they had already glimpsed? The dark waters beckoned, and something blood-curdling was about to surface. What would they do next? The monstrous roar echoed like thunder, crashing against their minds as if the night itself wished to consume them whole. Jason's heart pounded louder now than ever, each beat a frantic message urging him to run. But he couldn't move. "Go," Hank shouted, his voice a sharp knife cutting through the thick tension. "Get away from the edge." But his words felt distant, drowned out by the chaotic clash of waves and the terrifying presence from beyond the door. Jason turned his eyes back to the figure. Its shape flickered, a dim light weaving around it as though the glow recognized its own despair. "Please." The word hung in the air like fog, dense and cold. It was not a threat, but a plea, a haunting wail that struck at the core of each man's soul. Tyler stumbled backward, nearly losing his footing on the slick dock. "This can't be happening. We need to get out now." The spirit wavered, and in that moment of weakness, Jason felt a surge of courage. "Wait," he shouted, raising his hands in an attempt to calm the spirits and his friends alike. "We have to listen. What if it's trying to tell us something?" Hank shot him an incredulous look. "You're insane, Jason. It's just a ghost. You really think that thing represents anything good?" The figure lurched forward, a wave of black water crashing against the dock as it struggled to emerge. Jason caught a glimpse of its face, twisted with agony, but layered with an almost desperate hope. Somehow, he felt its torment cutting through the cold fear that a flicker of warmth ignited in Jason's chest. He had to know. "I'm going closer," he declared, almost more to himself than anyone else. "Don't you dare!" Tyler shrieked, eyes wide and wild as he lunged to stop Jason. But the force of that darkness anchored him. It tied his feet down, granting him an awful blend of dread and fascination. Suddenly, the waters erupted. Dark tendrils snaked their way to the surface, quickly tracing the outline of the spirit. They formed into grotesque shapes. A maw of teeth crashed open, revealing an identity far more monstrous than any ghost. Panic pooled like ice in his veins. "Run!" Jason cried, finally breaking the spell that held him captive. Hank grabbed him by the shoulders, sheer fright driving him. But in that frantic struggle towards the docks, one thing became clear. Their backs were to the dark waters, and that shadowy mass emerged like an unstoppable storm. Screams echoed from behind as the fishermen scrambled and stumbled, launching themselves towards safety. But it felt like running from quicksand. The pull became heavier, as if the darkness beneath sought to drag them all down. Jason dared a glance back. The figure, now fully visible, clenched its bony fingers as if preparing to ensnare them. Its hollow, haunted gaze shot right into him, betraying secrets lost to time. "Help!" it implored, the chill in its voice wrapping around Jason with a sheer force. Then, without warning, a booming sound ripped through the chaos. The docks began to splinter and crack, with splinters flying like deadly shrapnel. "It's gonna break," Hank yelled, dragging Jason faster. Every fisherman was now a tangled mess of limbs and terror, slipping in chaos as they fled the inevitable. But something else emerged from the depths, a grand scale, glinting with malevolence. Jason could hardly comprehend it all in that fleeting moment. As they scrambled to escape, he felt the weight of regret crushing down on him. What if they were meant to help? What if this spirit held the answers to what had taken their loved ones? And just as they leaped onto firmer ground, the dark waters erupted again, roaring, revealing what had been plaguing their shores for too long. "Turn around!" Tyler screamed, his voice nearly drowned by the violent surf. Jason felt a cold wash of realization. They were on the brink of discovering not just the haunting truth of the ocean, but an unspeakable horror that offered no escape after dark. With one last glance, Jason's breath caught. Something over there was far worse than the ghost. It was staring right back at him, the creature's eyes, burning with an eerie light. What would happen when the tides changed? What would they pay to leave the past behind? The ground shook beneath them as they stumbled away from the jagged edges of the dock, every splintered plank crackling like bones underfoot. Jason's chest tightened, each breath stinging as panic coursed through him. He wanted to run, to escape whatever hell had been unleashed, but something deep within him tugged him back. What if the spirit truly needed their help? His mind raced, flashes of lost faces and heart-wrenching memories swirling around like a storm. "We can't just leave it," he yelled, forcing more conviction into his voice than he felt. Hank shot him a wild look, horror radiating across his face as he shook his head. "Jason, you're out of your mind. Whatever that thing is, it's not your friend." Hank's voice cut through the chaos, but Jason wasn't listening. He stared at the writhing darkness. There was something powerful lurking beneath the surface, something waiting to be freed. "Look," Tyler's voice was strident with urgency. "The waters are calming. It's retreating." And, just as he said it, the dark tendrils recoiled, hissing back below the surface as if the spirit's anguish momentarily quelled a raging tempest. But in their retreat, they revealed something else, a shimmering outline among the shadows, something that pulsated and glowed, a door, suspended just above the murky abyss. "What the hell is that?" Hank gasped, his voice cracking with disbelief. Before Jason had a chance to answer, a sudden silence fell, thick and suffocating. The frantic shouts of the fishermen faded, replaced by the eerie stillness of dread. Even the waves seemed to hold their breath. That door stood glowing in the darkness, waiting just for them. Curiosity battled against caution in Jason's heart. What if it's a trap? Tyler's voice trembled, eyes darting back and forth between the waters and the door. Jason swallowed hard, the lump in his throat burning. Or what if it's a chance to understand what's going on? What if it could lead us to answers we need? Hank dragged his palm down his face, exasperation pouring off him in waves. Or it could mean death. Think about it. But Jason couldn't shake the magnetic pull of the door, beckoning him closer. It throbbed with an energy he could almost reach out and touch. Instinctively, he took a step forward, the darkness swirling at his heels, urging him onward. "Jason, don't!" Hank cried, lunging to grab him. But it was too late. The moment Jason crossed into the light spilling from that door, he felt a jolt of connection. The pain and sorrow of the spirit roared in his ears, crashing against him in waves like a tide of anguish seeking to drown him. Then, a whisper broke through, crystal clear even amid the chaos. "Help us find the truth." The voice, though faint, resonated with a deep sorrow, and Jason realized it was the spirit urging them. Each word pulled at the fraying seams of his courage. "What do you mean, help? What truth?" Jason shouted back, the abyss around him suspended in tense air. But before an answer could materialize, the ground trembled again. The glowing door shimmered with an intensity that briefly lit up the faces of his friends, casting their expressions in sharp relief, fear, confusion, and that faint flicker of hope. "Jason, step back," Hank pleaded, eyes wide as the door began to crack. Dark water surged higher, threatening to swallow them whole. "We can't do this." But as he turned to run, the tide shifted. The shadows below seemed to awaken, stirring like a predator ready to hunt. The bony fingers of the spirit reached upward, clawing for purchase on the edge of reason, longing for liberation. And then the door burst open, a gust of wind howled from within, sucking in everything in its path. Jason felt himself yanked toward the threshold, his heart pounding wildly. It was as if the darkness itself sought to reclaim him. "No!" Hank shouted, gripping Jason's arm with a strength fueled by desperation. As the wind howled and the dark tendrils clawed at their legs, Jason locked eyes with Hank. Amidst the chaos, the unspoken question hung heavy in the air, Would they dare to cross the threshold into the unknown, or would they be swallowed by the horrors waiting in the depths? And then the voice called out once more. Help, please. They stood at the precipice, the abyss looking back, demanding an answer. What would they choose? What if this was their only chance to face the truth of the past and the darkness that haunted their shore? Time stood still. Jason felt the wind tugging at him with relentless force, the coldness biting his skin as if the very abyss was alive. The glowing door loomed larger, its light pulsating like a heartbeat, and he fought against the primal fear coursing through him. What if crossing that threshold truly meant stepping into the unknown? Maybe it was the only chance to save what lingered in the darkness. Don't go, Tyler shouted, his voice cracking under the weight of terror. The shadowy waters churned ominously, waves crashing violently, as if in warning. For a fleeting moment, Jason hesitated. Would he really step into madness? But then he remembered. He remembered the whispers that had haunted their town, the tales of fishermen lost to the depths, not just in body but in spirit. What if they could help? With a resolve that surprised even himself, he took another step closer, breaking free from Hank's grip. It was like stepping off a precipice, no turning back now. But before he could take the plunge, the voice grew louder, echoing off the walls of his mind. Help us find the truth. Jason's breath hitched. He had no idea what awaited him, but he couldn't ignore it. He needed to know. Without thinking, he lunged through the doorway, the brightness engulfing him like a shroud. The air felt electric, crackling around his skin. He was surrounded by a blinding light that melted the shadows away, and for an instant, he thought he was floating among the stars. Then, just as abruptly, he landed. The ground beneath him was solid but cold and slick, like the deck of a ship long abandoned. He spun around, taking in his surroundings. He stood in a vast cavern, surreal and otherworldly, with walls that shimmered like water but felt like stone. Wisps of ethereal light danced around him, swirling like fireflies caught in a dream. Behind him, the door had vanished, swallowed by the very darkness he had just escaped. Panic squeezed his chest. He was alone. Jason. Hank's voice echoed in the chamber, filled with equal parts relief and fear. Tyler's frantic footsteps followed. They all stumbled through the threshold, eyes wide, searching for Jason. What is this place? Hank gasped, looking around with dread. I don't know, Jason replied, the weight of uncertainty thickening the air between them. He felt their presence like a tether, grounding him but also igniting his fears. Maybe it's a trap, Tyler whispered, glancing nervously at the edges of the cavern, shadows lurking just out of sight. Or worse, it might be. A low rumble interrupted him, a growl that vibrated through the ground. Dust and small stones fell from the ceiling as dread crept into their hearts. You said you heard the spirit, Hank said, stealing his courage. What are we supposed to do here? As if in response, the swirling lights dimmed, and the air grew thick with an ancient sorrow. It hummed with energy, vibrating against their skin. Jason narrowed his gaze on an archway in front of them, shrouded in a blue mist that swirled menacingly. Maybe we need to find out what it means by truth. That might be what we've been searching for this whole time, he said, his conviction finding new strength. But before they could decide, the mist solidified and coalesced into shapes, figures emerging from the edges of the cavern. They were indistinct, a collection of lost souls, their faces twisted in expressions of pain and longing, reaching out with translucent hands. That Jason's heart raced. Are they? Yes. Those are the fishermen, Hank realized, eyes wide in horror. The spirits moaned, a collective sorrow that chilled them to the bone. Help us. Release us. Fingers trembling, Jason stepped forward. What do you want from us? The voice that answered was layered, a chorus of whispers, a wretched sound that echoed with desperation. Find the truth, break the curse. As the words hung in the air, Jason felt the tension swell. What curse? What truth were they tasked with uncovering? Around him, the echoes intensified, dark shadows merging with the forms of the spirits, rising like a storm ready to break. I think we have to confront something, he said, breathless. But what? The pressure built, like the sky before a storm, and a shock ran through Jason. The realization hit him. The truth they sought might be buried deeper than he imagined. The ground quaked underneath them again, sending his heart into overdrive. His chest clenched with fear, and the boundaries of his mind stretched painfully thin. "Are you ready?" he whispered to his friends, anxiety thick in his voice. But Hank and Tyler could only stare eyes wide in disbelief, uncertainty slicing through the already tense air. Above them, the cavern shuddered, and the spirits surged forward, desperate and pleading. "Help us before it's too late." The shadows danced in anger, a storm brewing within the cavern. Jason swallowed hard. This was just the beginning, and the path ahead was shrouded in darkness, uncertainty clawing at his mind. But could they truly confront the past? Would they dare to dig deeper into the secrets that bound them? As the cavern trembled and the spirits shrieked in unison, he realized this truth they sought could very well unravel everything they knew, and he wasn't sure they were ready for that. But there was no turning back. Would they find justice for the lost? Or would they join the very souls they sought to save? With urgency bubbling in his chest, Jason moved forward, determined to face whatever waited in the dark. His breath quickened as he looked at his friends, a silent agreement forming between them. Together, they were about to unveil the heart of the abyss. What lay beyond would test their limits. It was only the beginning. The moment Jason stepped forward, the air thickened like hot molasses, weighing on him, pressing down until he struggled to breathe. The spirits surged, a whirlwind of anguish swirling around them, pulling at Jason's clothes and hair. Hank and Tyler flanked him, their faces pale, the imagined horrors of the unknown creeping into their eyes. "Together, we can do this," Jason called out, trying to anchor their fear. They moved toward the mist-shrouded archway, almost hypnotized by the flickering voices that urged them on. "Find the truth, let us go." The voices twisted through the air, mingling with the coldness creeping into Jason's bones. An instinctual shiver ran down his spine, but he pressed forward, gripping Hank's arm as they stepped closer to the doorway. It beckoned, dark and mysterious, promising revelations that danced just beyond their reach. The mist curled like smoke, thickening until it encapsulated them, and the world outside where the fishermen roamed lost faded from view. Jason squinted, trying to pierce through the haze, and then there it was. A flicker of light ahead, barely visible yet vibrant, like a beacon in the deep. "Look," Tyler gasped, taking a step towards the light that gleamed with a strange familiarity. It was almost comforting, calling to him with a voice he could almost hear. He hesitated, peering into the brilliance that cut through the swirling darkness. "I don't know about this," Hank murmured, shivering visibly. The uncertainty gnawed at him. "What if it's a trick?" "We have to try," Jason insisted, his own voice trembling. "If we don't act now, they might become even more lost." As if on cue, the spirits howled, an anguished wail that echoed off the cavern walls. The sound was like ice slicing through their resolve. "Stop!" Jason screamed. "What do you want?" In response, the air shifted. Time seemed to stutter, each second stretching taut and crackling. A figure emerged from the mist, elongated and wavering like a candle flame, a sorrowful visage of a fisherman with sunken eyes and a hollow expression. His mouth opened, but not a sound came forth. "What are you trying to show us?" Jason called, stepping forward despite the rising dread in his chest. The ethereal fisherman pointed to the ground beneath them, and with that, the floor trembled again. A crack snaked across the cavern, revealing a glowing well of water that shimmered with unearthly light. "Is that?" Tyler gasped, taking a step back. "Is that what we think it is?" "Only one way to find out," Jason replied, even as his heart raced. The water looked alive, swirling with vibrant colors: reds, blues, and greens, alive with secrets and untold stories. At that very moment, a tempest of darkness swelled in the cavern, the spirits screeching in unified despair. It was as if the shadows themselves were fighting against the light. "Don't move," Hank yelled, his voice barely able to be heard over the noise. Jason could feel the pull of the well, his body leaning forward as if drawn by an unseen force. A whirlpool of energy spiraled around them, and he felt an overwhelming compulsion to reach out, to touch the water that seemed to promise answers and solace. But in the chaos, a forgotten truth flicked at the corners of his mind. This wasn't just any water. This was a gateway, and every story told, every sailor lost had led him to this point. "Remember what I said," he shouted over the cacophony, turning to his friends. "We may uncover something about ourselves, or we may lose everything. In that moment of clarity, Jason's hand hovered above the water, sensing an ancient intelligence shimmering beneath the surface. His pulse quickened as the spirits surged forward, their whispers echoing in his ears. "What if it's a trap?" Hank asked, eyes darting between Jason and the well, fear etched on his face. "What if it's the only way to finish what they started?" Tyler countered, stepping closer, resolve igniting in his gaze. Jason took a deep breath, fingers just inches from the dancing surface. His heart raced with both fear and exhilaration. He felt the weight of his friends' anticipation, the tug of unwavering hope mingling with terror. What lay beneath could answer their questions or counsel them to an even deeper darkness. Could he risk everything to find out what the truth meant? With a flash of determination, he plunged his hand into the shimmering water. As the energy crackled around him and visions flickered in his mind, the screams of the spirits reached a deafening crescendo. Jason's heart raced as the water glowed stronger, wrapping around him like a lover's embrace, drowning out everything else. What truth would swirl from its depths? And what would happen when they were forced to face the weight of their past? Nothing felt certain as the world faded to black, but one thing was clear. The abyss had their attention, and it wouldn't let go without a fight. The silence that fell was chilling, a prelude to unimaginable revelations waiting to unfold. Jason felt a jolt, like a shockwave coursing through his veins. The water enveloped his arm, pulling him deeper, dragging him into the very heart of the abyss. As he submerged, colors exploded in his mind, flashes of memories, both his own and those of the spirits who had been lost for so long. Visions of old fishermen cast adrift, waves crashing against their fragile wooden boats filled his thoughts. He could almost hear their desperate cries mingling with the wailing spirits. Fear clawed at him, but alongside it, an intoxicating rush of power surged through Jason's body. "Pull him out," Hank shouted, panic threading through his voice as he grabbed Jason's shoulders, trying to tug him back. But the well wouldn't let go. Instead, an invisible force amplified, holding Jason tight in its grasp. He felt the stark contrast of fright spiking in his friends while a profound calm settled over him. The water began to unearth secrets, shocking, heartbreaking truths bound to the ocean's depths. "Jason," Tyler's voice strained, breaking through the chaos, desperation in every syllable. In an instant, a new image flooded Jason's mind, vivid faces of fishermen with their families, hands grasping at faded photographs, laughter echoing, overshadowed by the weight of loss. The realization hit him hard. These were the souls trapped, taken by the sea, clutching unfulfilled dreams and heavy regrets. "Let them go," Jason shouted instinctively, breaking through the fog of visions just for an instant. But his words hung in the air, unanswered. The pressure in the cavern intensified, pushing against them from every direction, the spirits howling as if in rage. Jason's throat constricted, gasping for breath. He fought against the pull of the water. A giant wave crashed around him, threatening to pull him under entirely. Suddenly, he glimpsed a door emerging from the depths, an ornate wooden structure covered in barnacles, old and weather-worn. "Jason, you have to come back," Hank shouted, but Jason's mind was racing. That door. It beckoned with a promise of answers. Behind it lay the stories of the fishermen, their final moments, their hopes lingering like whispers. If he could reach it, perhaps they could find a way to free them all. Summoning every ounce of strength, Jason pushed against the water's grip, feeling a pull from the door. "I need to see this," he yelled, desperation fueling his will. With a thrust of his arm, he propelled himself towards it, his pulse hammering in rhythm with the roar of spirits. His fingers grazed the surface of the door just as Hank finally managed to pull him away from the well. The connection shattered, but not before Jason glimpsed a single, flickering image of fisherman's child, eyes wide and searching, reaching out across time. "No!" Jason screamed, the energy of the water collapsing around him. The spirits surged in one final desperate scream, as if the entire cavern was about to explode. He felt his friend's arms around him pulling him free, but the weight of the revelation crushed him. What had he just discovered? What had the water shown him? As they tumbled back, the door vanished beneath the surface like a mirage, leaving the cavern eerily still, the spirits withdrawn for the moment. In the perplexing quiet, A new horror dawned on Jason. They're still here. We haven't saved them. We only opened the door to their pain. The silence settled heavier than before, a vivid contrast to the chaos they had just faced. But beneath that silence, a tension lingered, a raw urgency that suggested they were far from finished. Jason, Hank murmured, eyes wide with terror. What if it knows we're here now? What if we awakened something even darker? And that thought hung over them like an impending storm, making their breaths shallow and their hearts race. What lay ahead was uncertain, and Jason was left standing at the precipice of his choices. Would they return to the well and confront the spirits once more? Or would the other darkness lurking in the cavern swallow them whole? But one thing was clear. They had to find the truth. The stakes were higher than ever before, and the consequences would be eternal. Could they handle the weight of what was to come? Jason's heart raced as he stumbled backward from the well, Hank and Tyler's arms around him, anchoring him in reality. But with every ounce of strength he had, dread clawed at him. He could feel the weight of those trapped souls pressing down, their cries echoing in his mind like a relentless drumbeat. "We have to do something," he gasped, breathless. "What can we possibly do?" Tyler shot back, panic evident in his eyes. "We nearly lost you in there. You saw what happened." "It's not over," Jason insisted, shaking off their grip to face the cavern again. The eerie stillness was deceptive. Shadows twisted in every corner, whispers from the past lingering just out of reach. The door, it was real. There was something behind it. "But what if it's danger?" Hank replied, pleading for reason. "What if whatever's down there is worse than we can imagine?" Jason's voice dropped to a whisper. "What if it holds the key to their freedom?" The more he thought about the fisherman's child, the more he felt their pain wrap around him like a suffocating blanket. "We can't run away from this. We have to face it." The air charged around them, electrified with their indecision. Tyler glanced back at the well, the water swirling silently now as if biding its time. "What if it knows we're weak? What if it's just waiting for us to come back? Or waiting for the next group of unsuspecting souls?" Jason countered, eyes fierce. He was met with silence, a heavy pause thick with unease. The truth of their reality sank in deeper. "Tonight, we must be brave," Jason declared, feeling the resolve swell inside him. "If we go back, we need to be prepared. Whatever power that door held, it's still there, and so are the spirits." With shared glances, they nodded, each grappling with their own fears. Time blurred until the cavernous darkness seemed alive, ready to consume them whole. Jason turned, leading the way toward the edge of the well, the cold stone beneath his feet solid yet menacing. As they approached the water's edge, uncertainty crept in again. The beauty of the moonlight cascading into the cavern was an almost mocking contrast to the horror lurking beneath. The water stirred gently, revealing glimpses of something far more menacing. "I hate this," Hank muttered, swallowing hard. "This isn't a camping trip. We might be waking a wrath we can't handle." Before Jason could respond, a low rumble vibrated through the cavern. The sound grew, an undercurrent of fury mixing with sorrow, as if the spirits themselves were protesting. Jason's heart raced. They were being called back. "Now," he shouted, gripping Tyler's arm as they leaned over the edge. The water surged, restless, as if beckoning them closer. They could almost hear the whisper of the sea, shared secrets on the brink of revelation. Then, without warning, a roiling wave erupted from the well, showering them with icy droplets, a visceral warning that sent chills racing down their spines. In that moment, Jason knew there was no going back now. The flickering image of the fisherman's child returned to him, their eyes still searching, pleading. "We have to dive in. We have to see what lies beneath the surface," he urged, adrenaline surging. "Are you crazy?" Tyler exclaimed, but Jason's mind was set. "It's now or never." They joined hands, taking a collective deep breath as the echoes of past tragedies loomed around them like a menacing cloud. "Let us do this together," Jason shouted. And just like that, they plunged into the icy depths, the world above vanishing in a whirlwind of bubbles and shadows. As they swam down, the darkness enveloped them, tightening like a vice. But the door, the promise of answers, was still ahead, twisting with the movements of the water. What secrets were waiting just beyond reach? The weight of fate pressed down harder than ever as they descended into the black, and Jason realized the truth. They were stepping into a nightmare of their own making. But would they survive what lay ahead? Would they find freedom or face eternal anguish? Only time would tell. As Jason dove deeper into the abyss, the icy water wrapped around him like a cloak of despair. The darkness felt unyielding, but determination surged with every beat of his heart. He could almost hear the spirits crying out, their voices mingling with the rushing water. The weight of their pain pressed down on him. Urging him forward, he focused on the dim glow at the heart of the abyss, the luminous door that pulsed with a faint rhythm, echoing like a heartbeat. His friends flanked him, their faces set in grim determination. Each stroke brought them closer, yet also deeper into the unknown. There was no turning back. Suddenly, Jason broke the surface of the water, finding himself at the base of the door. It stood tall, covered in barnacles and framed by darkness. The glow seemed to radiate warmth, beckoning him like a long-forgotten home. He reached out, trembling fingers brushing against the cold wood, and a surge of energy ignited in him. Now, he urged, eyes meeting Hank and Tyler, who nodded resolutely. Together, they pushed against the door, feeling it yield slightly. As if it knew they were there to confront the truth, the door creaked open, revealing a brilliant light that spilled out and engulfed them. A rush of memories flooded his mind: laughter, heartache, families lost, and lives undone. Jason's breath caught in his throat. This wasn't just a portal. It was a realm of stories etched into the fabric of the ocean. They stepped through, finding themselves in a surreal landscape, a mix of shimmering waters, floating memories, and spectral echoes of fishermen who had long been lost. The spirits materialized around them, faces softening into expressions filled with both longing and hope. "Help us find our truth," they whispered, their voices weaving together in a haunting symphony. Reality wavered as images danced before Jason's eyes, showing him the lives these fishermen had led. Each snapshot revealed the sacrifices made, the families left behind, and the storms that had claimed them. Jason felt tears well in his eyes. "We're here for you," he called out, his voice steady even though his heart raced. "We'll find a way to break this curse." Hank and Tyler were beside him, their own eyes glistening with unshed tears. As the visions intensified, it became clear the abyss had held more than just darkness. It contained their shared stories, the collective grief binding them all. That a swirling vortex of light and shadow unveiled itself the heart of the curse. Jason understood now. It was a manifestation of all the pain, the unspoken sorrow of every soul lost at sea. They needed to confront it together, to pull every fragment of darkness into their light. "Let us do this together," Jason shouted, reaching out to Hank and Tyler, their hands linking in a circle. The tempest of spirits swirled around them, a cyclone of anguish and hope suffusing the air with palpable energy. "We will not let you go alone," Tyler cried, emboldened by the moment. "You're not forgotten. Your stories live on," Hank added, pouring his heart into his words. And in that instant, the spirits surged forward, their voices rising in a heart-wrenching crescendo, echoing through the very fabric of the water. With their united voices, they faced the dark vortex, the essence of the curse hanging thick like fog. Together, they pushed forward, each heartbeat synchronized in determination, their collective courage illuminating the shadows that had clouded these spirits for too long. The light intensified, lashing against the darkness. The contrast was fierce and beautiful. With every ounce of strength, they poured their love and compassion into the heart of the curse, watching it contort and thrash in rebellion against their bond. Then, a blinding surge erupted, an explosion of pure light, sweeping across the depths of the ocean, shattering chains of sorrow and pain. The spirits seemed to soar, radiant and vibrant. Faces that had once been twisted in despair transformed. They smiled with relief, peace washing over them as they began to disappear into the luminous ocean that in that moment of unity, Jason, Hank, and Tyler felt liberation course through them. The burden lifted, air rushing back into their lungs as they gasped on the surface. They broke free, emerging from the water, gasping for air, hearts racing with the triumph of having faced darkness and set the spirits free as they clung to the dock, light fading from the once ominous door behind them. They grasped the weight of their journey. Did we really do it? Hank whispered, also fusing his tone. Yeah, we did, Jason replied, a smile breaking through his exhaustion and relief. They sat on the dock, allowing the cool breeze to wash over them, feeling the burden of grief lift in the gentle ebb of the tide. I guess the stories of the sea live on within us now, Tyler said softly, looking out over the waves, glimmering under the moonlight. They understood lost but not forgotten. They had strength, courage, and a bond forged through shared pain. For the first time, their town could breathe again, free from the grips of grief and shadow. As the waves lapped gently at their feet, their hearts aflame with newfound purpose, each man knew they would carry the spirit's legacy into the light. This chapter had closed, but their memories and newfound hope would echo through the ages. The ocean whispered thanks, and the fishermen of Cape Coldwater stood united, knowing they had changed the course of their fate. Now, dear friends, don't let this journey stop here. You need to subscribe immediately to ensure you don't miss the next exclusive stories that wait just around the corner. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm and help our community grow. Remember to flood the comments section with your thoughts, reactions, and theories about this thrilling conclusion. And this is the moment to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see the light beyond the darkness. Don T. Wait, even one more second your support means everything.